Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. I'm combining a couple of previous episodes' results to create something new today. I've got some of the sparkly frosted leaves we made. I've got some of the sparkling wintry watercolour backgrounds that we made. And I'm going to create some kind of panel here with those and maybe some pine cones, larch cones, probably some stamping of some of my winter stamps, maybe a photo in there, not sure. But the first thing I want to do is just glue this background down onto some waste cardboard so that I've got something a bit more substantial to carry any additional sturdiness or weight that I'm going to need. So I'm going to use some glue. This is the usual Cosmic Shimmer. You can use any acrylic glue you've got, just to glue some paper to some cardboard, and I'll be back. There we go. In the long run, this could go into some kind of frame, but for now that it's on the cardboard, and I've got no idea what this came off, seems to have some sort of shiny black background, that will now stand on a shelf just as it is, if that's all I want to do with it. So I'm thinking some background stamping. I want maybe, wondering about this lovely Winter's Tale one here. Nice Shakespearean connection, maybe just hovering somewhere in this wintry hedgerow that I'm planning. It's just such a lovely stamp. Let's think about that. We don't have to do that immediately. I think I definitely want these Teasels, winter Teasels. And I'm wondering about, this one just going up the side. I'm just going to build some sort of hedgerow layers to go behind my leaves, and I think this is calling my name today, these winter grasses. Maybe in fairly subtle colour for this one. I might even go grey. I think this is a watering can, which is one of the Wendy Vecchi colours. Oh look, this is my dirty stamp on the back, which means that it's unwilling to glue down. Really need to clean it properly, but I'll hope that I can make this work, stick for long enough to create some stamping across this side here. There we go, something like that. Just some subtle wintry grasses, creating background texture. I think what I'll do for the stamping is stick to sort of greys, because we've got plenty of colour coming from the leaves. There we go, that's quite nice. Maybe a couple of these little ones just poking up, so it's a sort of smaller version of a similar grass, giving you a sense of it being in the background. Oh look, I haven't got my craft mat down, have I? This piece of flooring is now getting so inked and painted that it might need replacing quite soon, in which case let's not worry about getting it dirtier, shall we? There we go, that's creating some sort of nice background texture layers. These in the long run behind the leaves might not even be visible, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. And then I've got some embossing powder here that I'm thinking it might be quite nice to do these winter Teasels with some shimmering embossing powder, just to keep that shimmering effect going. Hoping this is going to be a fairly quick creation today, because we're putting together things we've made on other occasions and just seeing how they combine, letting those instincts go. So I am going to pull this text stamp from the Juniper collection. Again, maybe it's the grid block that is reluctantly accepting these things. I think, again, I'm going to go with the grey. The text on here is really fine, so it's quite a gentle affair, and I think I just want that sort of hovering somewhere as a wintry reminder. Yeah, really delicate and gentle. because the text itself is so fine. Look what happens when that gold sparkle, just really delicate gold sparkle in there, catches the light. So this is creating a lovely wintry look. I'm enjoying that quite a lot. Let's go now with these winter teasels, and I think I am going to see what happens when I emboss them in this platinum powder. So this is one of Seth Apter's powders for WOW, and it's called Etched Platinum, and I trust Seth. Oh, now let's make sure everything here is fully dry, heat dried, so that none of this powder clings to this when I start stamping my teasels. I'm going to give this a good dry with the heat tool. Back shortly. If you're a regular here, you'll know that's a step that often gets forgotten. So I'm quite pleased with myself for remembering to do that this time. Let's just have a look at where we might want these. I think somewhere like that, which is going to mean the stems are not going to quite reach the bottom, but that's fine, partly because I'm going to have some leaves here, partly because I can choose to add those leaves in my, those stalks in myself, just with some pen work. But I think I'm going to trust that they'll just kind of vanish behind leafiness. You can, of course, use official embossing ink for this, but I find that that can be very sticky and gloopy. So on a fine detail stamp like this, I tend to use an Archival, and as long as you get your powder on fairly rapidly, that has never been a problem for me. And I find that it gives me better detail on my stamping than if I use embossing ink, which, as I say, can have quite a sticky sort of texture. If you're doing, you know, bold lettering or something like that, then absolutely use your embossing ink, because that's going to give you really good coverage. Lots of powder will stick to it. There we go. So powder in. Ooh, that's got a good sparkle to it, hasn't it? But I trust Seth to have made it something not outrageously shiny, but rather something a bit subtle and vintage is my guess. Subtle, vintage, and maybe industrial, knowing Seth's work and amazing design aesthetic. Right, let's see this. You can see there are a couple of bits where I didn't necessarily press the stamp down firmly enough, but you'll see there's quite an easy way of filling those in if I feel I want to. But I'm going to heat emboss this powder first. Ooh, the sparkle on that is lovely. So at this time of year, a touch of sparkle always seems to me a lovely thing, because what I'm trying to do is capture that glorious inspiration from nature of a frosty day when everything can just have that additional touch of fairy tale magic. So I've got sparkle in the background. I've now got platinum teasels. Oh, there it goes. There's that magic moment. You can see my cardboard is starting to bend up, but that's fine if I go in and heat from behind. Oh, I'm enjoying that platinum a lot. Can you see that catching the light? Let's make sure we get the stems. So with a powder like this, where you can see that magic moment happen, it's pretty easy to know when you've got a full emboss and when you've got any bits not quite done. You can spot the places where it hasn't embossed. Right, so if I now go in and heat behind the cardboard, hopefully that will mean the fibres curve in the other direction and we come back to approximately flat. A little bit of encouragement doesn't hurt. It's paper, so particularly while it's warm, it's fairly malleable. Look at that shimmer. I hope that's catching on camera. Yes, it is. And I do love platinum. There's a Ranger platinum powder that I'm also deeply fond of. Right, so these little patches where I've got nothing going on are quite nice because they look a bit frosty. This one I'm not bothered about because there's enough going on. This one where I didn't quite hit it has probably still got its ink because I didn't hit it. There is a lighter patch in the middle of the teasel so that it sort of gives you that rotundity. So it is there in the sketch as well, but I just feel like there's a little bit too much missing here. So my thing with this is I'm going to line this up as close as I can see, and then just with my fingertip I'm going to go down in that missing bit. So that's lining up my finger with where I can see it's missing, and with one that's got all these pointy bits on, it's really quite easy to line that up. Then I'm going to go back in with just a touch of powder over that little bit. And yeah, I've just caught where I need to add a little bit of extra prickliness to that teasel. There we go. And I'll heat emboss that and then come back and start adding some leaves. I want to keep the sky feeling lovely and fresh and open, but I think I might give myself a little bit of earthiness around the base here, just to create a sense of weight down into the ground. So I'm just going to use a little bit of walnut stain ink just to create, there we go, that kind of sense of grounding. So it's going round that corner where we've been doing the stamping to create some depth in our hedgerow, a little bit more down in this corner perhaps. And again, it's about creating contrast. So now we've got even more sense of the lightness of that snowy sky because we've created some weight down into this corner. I'm also just starting to wonder whether I don't want the leaves at all. Let's have a look at them. Let's place a few leaves back on here. So some of these are real leaves. This is a real leaf. It's covering up such a lot of that lovely stamping. So let's go for the smaller ones. This is another real leaf. This is an oak leaf. I've got a couple of my die cut, what do they call themselves? Leaf fragments. And then this other one comes from another set. I can't remember. I've listed them all in any case under the video where we did the sparkle. And then some of these are my stamped leaves, my twisted leaves from the new autumnal stamp set, so they're quite a nice addition. Maybe we have you going up there because I like that tatteredness. I love how close this oak leaf is to some of the Tim Holtz die cuts. It's sometimes hard to tell the die cut from the real leaf there. Maybe one more of the stamped and painted ones. All of that is in the sparkly leaf session, so follow the link to that if you're interested. Quite enjoying that, and as you see, it's really, it doesn't matter at all that those stalks weren't showing up. I'm wondering about just creating a little more of this little stamping because it's got lost behind here. I think it might be quite nice to just have it peeking out over the top. So I'm going to get those back. And I'm going to go, I think I'm going to go grey again. I'm not going to bother putting it on the grid because I think I can quite satisfactorily just tip some in from there. And then just have a little bit coming up from here. So that, yeah, there we go. You just get that little echo of them from down below. I think that's quite good. This leaf wants a bit more dimension, so I'm just going to give that a little squeeze, do a little bit of moulding. Quite nice. Wondering about a slightly smaller version coming up there. No, that's too similar in shape. Oh, I've got this one. This is one of those sort of skeleton leaf affairs. That's quite nice for a bit of variation in there. And maybe a little one just as part of the mix in there. That's looking pretty good. Don't know that I want to cover up those stems quite so much. So let's see if we can move this over a bit so that those stems, yeah, there we go, come down into there, and then it's maybe a little one of those At the moment I'm mostly trying to keep things flat at the bottom, but I don't mind if they're coming off the sides a little bit, because that gives me a lovely explosion of energy. And if this went into a frame, then obviously it would need to be a large enough frame to let that happen. That's all looking pretty good to me. Just going to experiment with putting maybe a pine cone around here, and then it's going to be a question of whether I want to glitter the pine cones as well. See, that's quite nice because they're a lovely echo of the Teasels. Just in there, something like that. Actually, with those, I don't feel the urge particularly to sparkle them, but we could. That's nice. Something little coming in this direction. Just building that sense of dimensional beauty. Thank you, nature. I sort of want this to go a little bit further up now as well. So I might take just this one again, and so that I don't get the exact same shaping of grass, I'm going to go for this little bit along the side, ink that up and tip that in instead of the front one. There we go. That's just giving us that full move up the side there. Good. Let's see about gluing some of this down. This is gonna be an interesting game. If you're a fan of a hot glue gun, you can absolutely use a hot glue gun at this stage. I have found that although it glues very immediately when you're doing it, a hot glue gun can be one of the ones, hot glue over the years can be a little bit less reliable in the long term. So for the most part, I'm probably going to be using my reliable trusty Cosmic Shimmer. When I get to these slightly heavier elements, I might well use some of my Gloopy Glue. That's the Liquitex super heavy matte gel. But let's just get some of these in place so that I can stop worrying about them shifting. I want you there, I want you sticking up there. Let's shift the angle of that. That's good, going off the side there like that. A little bit of this just tucked in there. There's a lovely energy about those two. I'm enjoying that a lot. Right, the real oak leaf is going to be interesting because this one's really curvy, and I can do a little bit of adjusting its shape, but I don't want to do too much because that is, I would say, the one that's in danger of breaking if I'm not careful. So let's get some of these down first. So the ones that I've sculpted, I'll put the glue obviously along the ridge. There's no point putting it on these flat bits because they're not going to be in contact with the cardboard. So it's just spotting the places that need the glue. That's quite nice. Let's keep those in that sort of place. You need gluing down. This one I think I am going to, oh no, I needed to do that side. Oh well, can't win them all. Some of that glue is not relevant. Some of that glue is relevant. So again, along the ridge that is actually going to be in contact with the card. No point putting glue anywhere else on that leaf. And this is just a bit of a juggling act until you've got them where you want them. As long as you do this reasonably speedily, before the glue dries, you've got time to adjust the positioning to keep your eye happy. Let's go with that in there-ish. That's going to be there-ish. So the oak leaf definitely wants to do that. And then we'll maybe have that sort of coming out from under the oak leaf. And then I can kind of pretend and use that to glue the oak leaf to as well. It'll provide an extra bit of support. Or that needs to go right to the ground. Otherwise it looks a bit silly floating on top of the leaves. Maybe it's another couple of larch cones because I'm really enjoying how dark they are. Let's see if we've got a slightly smaller sprig. Aha, you. That's nice. Okay, and a U a bit large. Let's see if I've got something just a smidge smaller. Yep. That's good. And that's a lovely echo of the teasel shape. So that's quite pleasing. Question is, to glitter or not to glitter? We've really been quite glittery over the rest of this, so maybe it's nice to have something that doesn't glitter, just as a contrast to all the shimmering. If everything is shimmering, then I think the eye will get a little bit confused or overexcited. So I'm just letting that make contact where it can. I've noticed that it's making contact with this bit of leaf here. So then I can put some glue like so. Let's pop this in down here. Yep, I like seeing that bit of stem as well. There it goes. And it's lovely how that dark larch cone is just over the top of the really shimmery, chunky stuff in there. You are still very loose, I'm aware of that. I'm going to come to you with some of this, I think. So here's the one that is sort of cream cheese, peanut butter thickness. I usually apply it with a coffee stirrer, if I can find one, or a random stick. Random stick is another thing that could be quite nice on this little panel. So I'm going to use that, because that's actually rather good when you're doing some dimensional gluing. Didn't need you to move. Like a padded tape, it also will help the thing to stick up from the base. Right, so you are the other thing I need to sort out now. Exactly where I want you positioned. I think nestled into the leaves rather than sticking out over the top of them. So let's just trim there. Might keep that bit of twig. And again, it's just going to be a question of identifying where it's making contact with anything. So I think it's there and there. And a little bit down here, maybe. Ah, marvellous. This happens. Get a little bit of tissue. Just pick up those little lumps of glue. They're going to dry clear. Sorry, I've got a stick in my mouth now. They're going to dry clear, so it's not, you know, a disaster. That's making contact with this leaf here. That's quite useful. So we'll pop a little bit of extra glue there. And then the weight of that just earthing us here. So a little bit on there. The other joy of this glue is that, like with a hot glue gun, as long as the thing you're gluing is not really heavy, that pine cone is going nowhere, even while that glue is still drying. Let's pop that back in there. That's rather nice. I wonder if this leaf is still movable. Just want to open up and see those stalks. All rather nice. So I'm just giving this cardboard a little bit of a gentle bend back in this direction, because I've noticed it's starting to kick up again. I might need to do a little shifting of that, because what I do need to make sure is that they're all level with the bottom, so that if and when I stand it on a shelf, that's gonna work and stand up. Really enjoying that subtle text. I'm not sure I want any other words on this. I think I might have reached a happy point. What I might do is put a little bit of additional white spatter, just thinking about that. Let's put these out of the way a little bit so I can see what's going on. Plenty of leaves left to use another day. I think we might be there. The reason I'm hesitating on the white spatter is, of course, that we've got all this glorious sparkle going on. So do we really want to add to it? And then the other bit of me is thinking, yes, maybe we do. And then the other thing that is just occurring to me is, although I said I wanted this nice and light up here, I think maybe I do want to do just a little bit of additional inking coming part way up to create the contrast with the sky up there. On the other hand, that also, because it's such a long way away, yeah. Sometimes leaving it uninked is the thing. Sometimes a little bit of edging just draws the eye together. And then the last thing I'm wondering about is whether I want a little bit of ephemera stamping going on, just a partial stamping coming in with something from around the edges, whether it's my little William Shakespeare, well, you see, that would be nice, wouldn't it? The William Shakespeare seal ring, again, is a lovely echo of this teasel shape, or it might be a bit of crackly texture coming in from the top. I might just need to step away from the desk and come back and look in order to know whether I want to add anything around here or whether I want to keep that lovely sense of lightness going up. One thing I might play with is just having a look, obviously not with those words. Haha. Maybe this is now background text as opposed to the relevant words. That's too strong, you can see that. Something fairly light, focus on the good. It's a bit too strong, isn't it? Shine like the stars. Well, that's appropriate given all the sparkling that's going on. Shine like the stars. Doesn't want to go up there. Doesn't want to go through there. That's bothering the Winter's Tale too much. Does it want to go? Ooh, look, maybe it wants to go. It would be possible to get it to go there. No, it's not right either. Let's have a look there. No, it's not right. Let's have a look at a couple of other word stickers and see whether something else looks like the thing. Ooh. Ooh. Sorry, just found these stamps. Maybe there's an argument for a neutral stamp. Some kind. I don't really want Australia because it's coming into summer in Australia at the moment, so that's completely the wrong thing to have. Wonder about you. Love these ideology stamp stickers. That's quite nice, but a little bit sort of out of keeping with the rest of everything that's going on, so I'm going to slip it back in. Always worth trying, always worth looking. I have somewhere got, oh, hang on, little rusty bits and bobs. Aha. That's a rusty washer picked up somewhere along the way. Maybe that's a nice thing to have. No, I think I'm happy with my pine cones. Let's see. What I was really going for when I bumped into the stamps was, if they're around, the clipping stickers. Just to have a look. Again, these won't be the right words. Now is the time, just at the moment. Just to have a little look at something subtler than a quote chip. Why are you not peeling off? That's because I've glued you in the past and then decided I didn't want you. Just at the moment. I think it could be something like that. Shame to stick it over the sparkly leaf, but that's quite nice. Tucked in here. No, because it's going across those. So interestingly, because I was thinking of these words as being the point, words-wise. It is the Winter's Tale. There isn't a good compositional place, I think, for other text. It's interesting. Since this one is just hanging out here, having fallen off the small talk sticker pad, let's just see if there's mileage in a black sticker. Do what you love. Nope, certainly not there. Down here, nope, unbalanced. A dramatic pastoral. Do what you love, the Winter's Tale. Not quite. That's a little more interesting. Somewhere near the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. Still not right, is it? Lower. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Really fascinating. And maybe enough. And maybe what I'm missing. Maybe what I'm missing is the spatter. Maybe that's what's causing the hiccup in my processing. So this is the P.H. Martin's Bleedproof White. You could absolutely do this with white acrylic paint. Not a problem. Let's see what we've got. Needs a touch of water just to loosen it up a little bit. See what we've got. Yeah, that's a very fine spatter, so that's probably quite nice. And where I'm particularly going to aim it, I think, are up these non-sparkly pine cones, just to soften the dark of that a little bit. It is nice on the leaves, isn't it, actually? Even though we've got all that sparkle going on. And up into those grasses, up and around. Yeah, it's an extra touch of winter, which is great for the Winter's Tale. Okay, you could brush this onto these pine cones, and then you get a slightly more full-on affair. Make sure you're hitting every bit of texture. But I think I'm good with it spattered for the most part. Nice. Yeah, I think that makes me happier than adding text would. Keeping that subtle Winter's Tale text is more satisfying, I think. Nonetheless, I am going to step away from the desk and come back and see what I think. You're just going to have to wait for the close-up to see if I end up adding any text. Thanks so much for your company today. Whenever we're making all these backgrounds or all these bits of decorative pieces, allowing them then to come together and play together is one of the ways to just wake up the creative imagination, combining elements that we've put together with natural elements, so on and so forth, is always going to bring me joy. Thank you so much for your company. I'll leave additional details down below and obviously link to these background videos and the leafy video in case you haven't seen them. So follow those links in the description below. I'll add ingredients for what we've used today. And yeah, it's always a delight to have your company on this creative journey. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting all. I'm back. I decided what it needed was a twig or two, so I've just added those in, little snippets of some twigs I picked up the other day, just adding an echo of the dark of these beautiful larch cones. Just checking there, they are pretty stable. Yeah, they're fine. If I leave them to dry, they'll be absolutely fine. So there is still some drying to do on this, but I'm gonna jump in and do the close-ups right now. So you might see some little gobbets of glue, little gobbets of glue that are still drying. Once I take the photos for Instagram, they will be fully dry, I promise, and then you'll be able to see it in all its glory. Right, I'm off. I'm back again, having stepped away and come back. I think I worked out what it needed. That is another stamping of the Winter's Tale, just the word the Winter's Tale, on a bit of spare book page at the bottom where you often get those wide margins. So just stamping in black, and I think that's the thing I need. I've done a little bit of inking. There's a little bit of rusty hinge on there to tone it in with the leaves. There's a little bit of walnut stain around the edges, and I think by just pasting that over the original Winter's Tale, I've still got all the other text there, but it's just giving me a little bit of focus on that text. I have done a little bit of ephemera stamping around the edges, but I think that's what I was waiting for. So stepping away and coming back can be a really valuable thing to do. All right, time for the close-up.